Good afternoon.
Hello, where's everybody?
Uh, I guess in the road or somewhere there.
Okay.
Maybe you can turn on the recording and they will just watch it later. It was a total surprise for us this morning.
Yeah, sorry for this. Yeah, we can wait a bit.
Maybe we could start. Uh, Others will join, I hope, several minutes later.
Um, okay. Let's start. We need to start talking about forecasting and I kind of so I should say that this course I'm experimenting a lot because I'm trying to learn how to teach this class, and I have been changing it a lot, and that's my struggle. I don't like how the machine learning classes are taught usually, because there are lots of stuff that people teach in machine learning classes that you can learn on your own. And for me, this is so trivial, I don't even want to bother teaching it. On the other hand, you somehow need to get up know all this trivial stuff. So I'm struggling to find the right balance, and I keep changing what I'm teaching. So that's why I'm saying this. I'm just saying this to say that to ask you for forgiveness ahead of time if I'm not smooth enough with my explanation. So maybe I'm jumping around topics too much. Maybe hopefully in 10 years this will be a perfect class that I like, that I the class that I want someone to teach to me. So anyway, uh, just a little bit of what's going on. So the lecture was devoted to the loss functions, and this is the foundation. But we are not playing around with the loss functions yet, because I have several very interesting, I hope, very interesting examples with loss functions, and you will have a home assignment that deals with a loss function. But in order to do something interesting with loss functions, you first need to
Oh,
uh, learn to do basic forecasting, or we need to make sure that you know how to do basic forecasting, both with cross section and time series data. Then, so that the loss functions is the foundation. The next step would be going a bit deeper into the forecasting problem, which will be the lecture on Tuesday, and figuring out all the issues, how you should view forecasting, what you should expect. So the lecture will be a bit high level, um, which supposedly will give you a high level view of forecasting approaches and help you to navigate through this world of forecasting. Now, in the tutorials, we kind of go in a parallel way, and somewhere we'll be meeting with the lecture, somewhere we'll be diverging from the lecture. So in tutorials, we kind of following more practical approach than in the lectures. Lectures will be more high level. But then, like your home assignments will rely on the lecture material, of course, because I will be asking some conceptual issues that we discuss in the lecture materials. And also, last time during the tutorial, I was trying to discuss sort of high-level conceptual issues of what are the problems with once you go to dynamic models, once you move from cross-section to dynamic models. Now, today we are going to try our first, um, um, well, the first trial of forecasting. So let me share my screen and we'll start coding. And uh, I will create a new notebook.
Will you send us the link to the collab
Yeah, and
server?
I'm going to send you the link.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. Okay, this is the link. Now, okay. So let us use a bunch of packages that we're going to use. Oops. Um, Now, let me start with getting some data, and I'm going to get the data from this website, and just to show you, um, um, so I'm going to use the data from this data site from Eurostat. I'm going to be using GDP and a bunch of other statistics. We can go crazy and use, it has so much data here. We can go crazy and download all kinds of data. I will select just data for, uh, let's see, economy and finance. I will select just to show you GDP. From here, I already pre-downloaded everything. I'm just showing you where to find. Then I'm going to use the uh, industry trade statistics, industrial production index from here. Uh, so that's industrial production index. And I'm going to use two non-obvious maybe for you statistics, but they are very important and they're actually worth knowing about. Um, this will be, let's see, um, some business, basically industrial and consumer sentiment. No, basically that will be industrial and consumer sentiment. Um, here, one can always search sentiment indicators. So sentiment indicators, they're very strong predictors of GDP. And like you can find them here. I'm going to, let's see, where is that? Population, science and technology. I don't see it here. Business. Never mind. I pre-downloaded everything, and so they're on my local drive. So I'm going to CD into my local drive. And sorry, where is it? Should have, let's say,
And for us, how to get this data? Like,
yeah, let me drop you the data.
things.
Yeah, you can get them from this Dropbox folder. So we can ls, where is it? No. CD, that's strange. Oops, my drive. That's weird. Oh, what I'm doing, sorry. Okay, so this is the list of the files. You should get them from the Dropbox as well. So let's say I download them one by one. Better to automate this, but let's say I'm downloading them one by one. Let's go with this one. That's um, 1 second human comments indicator. Then the next one, monthly index. Then the next one would be uh, a, this is GDP. And the data has the explanations, more explanations, and then later I will give you more comments about the data. Basically, I'm downloading only the indices, like quarterly GDP index and civil interested. Then quarterly industrial production index. um, Excel files here for you to, they have the full description of the data. And CSV, I downloaded both CSV and Excel files. Excel files contain all the data contained in CSV, but they have more data. I mean, they have all the descriptions of the data. And the last monthly harmonized index of consumer prices. Yep, harmonized index consumer prices. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to, so if you look at this data, I downloaded it from as much as I can from 1985 till October 2022, and this data is for the all data indices for 19 Eurozone countries. So these are indices for the 19 countries combined. So this European Eurozone 19. Like the same, say, if you look at GDP, this is what you see. Okay, now the next thing we're going to bring all data. Well, I guess let's first yeah, extract. Um, so I will limit myself from 1995, where the data for GDP starts, and when Eurozone starts, basically, and say uh, December 2019, because after that the pandemic started, and then it's not good time period to try our tools. I mean, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't include this time period, but it's too few observations yet uh, to for our model to be a good model for this time period. Once, like say, 5 year or 6 years passes, then we can include that period when more observations accumulated. And this is the usual approach in forecasting. The forecasting doesn't capture if the economy goes as usual, like it maintains the momentum, then forecasting works reasonably well. If some big shocks happen, then forecasting usually doesn't work that well. I mean, this kind of forecasting that we are going to consider. Although, of course, I should say that there are different ways to do forecasting. You can look at different data sets, different predictors, and potentially you could predict once a shock happen, you can predict quite well the propagation of that shock. But for the time being, we are not getting into this. So I'm going to write this function that is going to get um, first extract this column. In this column, this is all we need. And then let's say I need a copy, so that I don't change in place. Then I change this column to, this is just a string, and I want to change it to date time to work. How is it nicely? Let's say mm, now given that, I will just uh, sorry. So we can look at, say, let's see. So basically, we extracted from, limited everything from October 1995. This is to calculate the first quarter of 1996 as an average of monthly values that we're going to do next until December of 2019. Now, the next thing we're going to do is convert on all monthly data to quarterly. So let me write here. Yeah, let me just, so say this is a monthly data. Um, there are multiple ways to convert it to monthly, and suppose I want to calculate monthly data as average across, no, sorry, quarterly data as average across months. You probably are familiar with this. There are multiple ways to do it. I will demonstrate you my favorite way right now. So what I want to do, I want to take, say, these 3 months. This is the last quarter of 1995, and assign it the first day of the first months of the first quarter of 1996. So I want to assign the average value of this stuff, of this 3 observations to this. Then the average value of the next 3 observations to the beginning of next quarter, and so on. Why I want to do this? Because, say, if we look at the GDP, then supposedly this is the GDP value, say, 1996 January. I want the monthly data correspond to this, to the average value of the 3 months in the previous 3 months to be assigned to this value, and then match it. Because merge all the data sets, data frames. So I'm going to first set index. You can see basically the data frame now has this time period index. The next thing I'm going to do is do resample on a quarterly basis, mean. Um, you can so let me write it like this. So now you see that the end of each quarter has the average values of the months of this quarter, of the 3 months of this quarter. So what I want to do next, I want to move this date of the end of the month to the beginning of the next month. So I'm going to do reset index. It would look like this. I moved index to just a free column, and then I'm going to assign time period. I'm going to shift it. Now everything moved to the beginning of the next month, so that's the beginning of each quarter. Uh, now I want to wrap it into a function. Oops. And I want to apply this function to all monthly data. We can look at, say, this or this. It's now all as much as we have of the quarterly data. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to recalculate everything in the gross rates. So I want to be working with the gross rates. Um, so let's say I want to convert this to a gross rate. And again, there are multiple ways to convert things to the gross rate. I will do my preferred one. So we create a copy of this. By this, we set the index and duplicate data set. Perhaps it's not the most uh, fastest way, but let's do it. And basically, this percent change is the function that calculates the gross rate. And then finally, we just reset index. Um, and you can see we moved from the values to the gross rates. Um, and I want to repeat this for everything. GDP, IPI. Finally, I'm going to merge everything. So first, all data frames, they have the same columns, time period, ops value. I want to convert them to their names. So I renamed all the columns. For example, now it's CCI instead of ops value. And then I bring them all into one big collection of data frames. And then I'm going to use function from here, reduce. This is not the most efficient way, but it's quite simple. you can using concat will be the efficient way. Uh, Pandas concat it will be more efficient way, but let's go with this way because it's um, intuitive. So I'm going to be merging all the columns. Uh, I'm going to apply the lambda expression and merge all the pairs of the data frames in the list on this column time period, doing a inner merge, meaning that only the columns with not the columns, the only the rows of the data frames with the matched time period will be merged. Everything else will be dropped. So say I call it the U. So we get the merged data frame with the quarterly growth rates. Starts with the third quarter of 1996 because some of the data were not available earlier, but fine. Okay, so, and the last thing, usual, let us plot what we observed. Um, I'm going to plot everything in two columns and three rows. This is just to make it all look nice. And now plotting itself. So if we do this, then Oops. Um, CD, um, set title, sorry. Ah, yeah. Okay, here we go. Um, why we are, it's a good idea usually to plot your data. Uh, one big reason for this is that you just should get a sense of what you're dealing with. And if you observe any weird stuff, probably you learned data manipulation. You told me, right? You learned data manipulation in the previous quarter module. So you learned that before you do any analysis with the data, it's important to take a look at it just to get a sense if anything weird is going on with the data that you have. Maybe you have some missing observations, some gaps, some huge outliers which don't make any sense. Here the data looks normal. I mean, nothing stands out. We see a huge drop in the GDP growth rate during the great financial crisis. We see the dot-com bubble here um, reflected in the confidence indicator. Maybe here this also reflects the dot-com bubble. I guess this reflects the um, again global financial crisis, and then the euro recession was happening here. Euro crisis was happening here. The Greece default and things like that. So looks fine. The only weird thing here is that harmonized index of consumer prices looks too volatile, and it looks as if it's not seasonally adjusted. So let me just check what I downloaded because it looks a bit too, the pattern is too striking. So it looks like there is a quarterly seasonality here, and we need to make sure that we are comparing apples to apples. So all these variables, I downloaded them cleaned out of seasonal variations. And we are going to talk about seasonal adjustments later. It's an ordeal on its own. It's a huge, like there are books written on how you should adjust seasonally. In like say Bureau of Economic Analysis in the United States, there's a whole team who is working on this is their only job to do the seasonal adjustment methodology and then seasonal adjustment of the data. Um, so that's we just for this exercise we just take seasonal adjusted data, but again let me double check that the consumer inflation her index of consumer prices is inflation adjusted. It doesn't look like it's inflation adjusted. Let me look what's going on here. Oh, sorry, seasonally adjusted. Let's go. Um, so I downloaded this data. Maybe I should have downloaded annual rate of change that takes care of the seasonal. That's one way to deal with the seasonal variation. Let me see this one. So they already suggest monthly rate of change. Okay, they don't have the option of, no. This is the option of what you can download. What, uh, I see. So, monthly rate of change. No, this is not the one. Okay, let's download the different one. Mm, they are not seasonally adjusted. It's not good. Um, so let's download the annual rate of change. Um, yeah. Right. So I drop it in Dropbox as well. Let's go back here. I like restarting the runtime if I change something like big, so that I don't have all data floating around, so that I don't confuse myself. Because lots of errors in when dealing with notebooks coming from some old data floating around when you change something. So I don't want that. So now
Excuse me.
the yes.
And how is the new data called?
So sorry.
We just downloaded a file. So how is
Uh-huh.
it called in this Dropbox?
Yeah. I was gonna tell you. It's the this one. So I also dropped it in Dropbox. You should see it. Ah, sorry, not this one. This one. Annual value. So I change this one with this. So year-on-year change is one way. Again, this is one way to deal with uh, seasonality, because kind of you shift it by the season and you compare change with respect to the previous months, and supposedly uh, that gets rid of the seasonal fluctuations, the level effects. But this is just one way, and there are many ways. Again, there are many ways to deal with seasonality, and if it were that simple, then there wouldn't have been the whole like researchers devoting their time to the right seasonal adjustment. So again, extract value. Now I convert to quarterly, and then this one I need to convert to gross rate. Mhm. So I don't need to convert inflation, merge, and now let's take a look. Still doesn't look good. Still there's too much fluctuation. Is it so? Ah, no, okay. Now it looks okay. Good. So now it looks better. So now we got rid of seasonality, and now this data makes more sense. Okay, that basically we prepared the data, and now let us do a bunch of very simple things to start with. So let's say we call it now. Let's call it so let's start with simple ordinary least squares. I'm going to use the method. So I have already downloaded stats models MPI from SM. I mean, as SM, and that would give me my OLS regression with all kinds of auxiliary information. Now I have consumer confidence index, industrial confidence index, um, inflation, I mean prices, and industrial production index. So that is my model. Then fit, and let's say no. What's going on? Ah, data. So we ran a simple OLS regression. Let's just take a look at it. So what we see that the sentiment doesn't look like it matters for the growth rate. Industrial production index is the most important explanatory variable. And let's see, the positively correlated, very good. Here is super non-significant statistically. And basically most of the variation is explained by this industrial production index. R squared is 0.76, which is not bad. let us now, suppose we want to, um, let us consider, for example, the model where we drop all of that and compare its outcomes. Let's say, now, suppose we want to choose the best model that explains the data. Yeah, there are several ways to do that. One way to do this is to use some kind of run the regression on the whole data set and then use some kind of goodness of fit test to the whole data set. So one goodness of fit test that all of you should know is R squared. But if we want to consider different models, like say we want to compare the model we have just run to the model where we don't have anything, we have only API. Suppose we want to consider these two models, we cannot compare them with respect to R squared because R squared doesn't take into account that um, for this model we have only one variable and one explanatory variable, and for this model we have four explanatory variables, and so we are not comparing. Uh, as we add more explanatory variables, it's just mechanically R squared will always increase. So it's not clear if we get something better. So to deal with this issue, there is adjusted R squared, which measures the goodness of fit and takes into account the fact that these two models have different values, different number of explanatory variables. And so we see here the adjusted R square is higher than here. So according to the adjusted R squared, this model is the smaller model is better. In There are other goodness of fit tests, which are so-called information criteria. I'm going to either devote a lecture or a separate seminar that would go deep into the information criteria because they're very important for once you go to the dynamic models. They are basically a default method of choosing the best dynamic model. And therefore, I usually devote take time to explain them well. But for now, let us just take them as given. So there are some information criteria. This is archaic information criteria. This is Bayesian information criterion, which is also called Schwartz information criterion. There is also Green. I don't see it here. I forgot. There are actually many information criteria, but these are the main ones. The point is that the smaller is the value, the better is the model. So this model gives information criterion, say archaic information criterion minus 797. This model gives minus 800. And so according to this model has a smaller value of the information criterion in the like it's smaller as negative. So this model is better in terms of this archaic information criterion. In terms of Bayesian information criterion, this is 784. This 796 is also better. So both criteria choose this second model. So this yeah, let me just 1 second. Give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to double check something. So now, uh, let's say we can have several candidate models. Um, let's say, I want to run several models and collect all results in a data frame. Hmm. Goodness of fate. Let's say we do another model. It's only this one. Well, we don't actually. Let's do this one. And let's say we do a model without API, IPI. Let's see. R squared is super low, and then the Akaike are also very high. Bayesian information criteria very high. And say that supports which one here was the least. So we can also we can go crazy and calculate all the combinations of parameters, and this is sorry, all combinations of explanatory variables, and this is something that people maybe have done in the past, And uh, econometricians, if you took an econometric class, going through all combinations of regressors is considered to be a bad practice. Uh, why? Because in econometrics, you're concerned very often, I mean, with inference and establishing causal relationships. And the fishing for the all potential explanatory variables is considered to be a very bad practice. While in machine learning or statistical learning, it's a viable technique going through all combinations of parameters, I mean, explanatory variables in a model and choosing the best one. Uh, the problem with this approach is if you have, say, here we have only 4 explanatory variables, and it can be very easy to go through all of them. But if we have uh, more than 4, then uh, it will be just the amount of the regressions that we need to run grows exponentially. And so it will be not um, feasible to do for a sensible large data set. That's why we have other methods that we're going to learn for model selection. But for now, let us stick with this method. And I want to say that when you look at the books on statistical learning, again, this method is usually one of the first methods you learn for the model selection in machine learning or statistical learning, because this is so easy and so straightforward. Um, and Again, I should say that there are usually no explanations. You need to know that such method exists, and then there are some variations on this method, like forward stepwise search, backward stepwise search. I see somebody in chat. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's we basically uh, the difficulty, the how you say it in computer science terms, the computational complexity grows with n squared. No, sorry, exponentially. It's not n squared because it's factorial, n factorial, which is approximately exponential. Uh, is it? No, it's sorry, not factorial. What I'm talking about, it's 2 to the power of n. It's not n squared, it's 2 to the power of n. Um, uh, then, in order to deal with this issue, you can do the stepwise search, backward search. And in the past, I used to go through these cases, but really nobody is using that stuff in machine learning um, practically. Practically, you just run the biggest regression that you can. Maybe you run a bit of like choose the explanatory variables that make sense, and then right after that, what you do, you just go to lasso or reach and things like that. And we are going to get into that in a second. I mean, not sorry, we are going to get into that not in a second in this class, but you still should know that this is what people used to do. And again, there is some, I want to emphasize that there is some stigma on that in econometrics, but you shouldn't bring that stigma into machine learning because the goals are very different. In econometrics, you are supposed to know about your subject area. You're supposed to have some economic theory behind your data analysis and your regressions, and you're after inference. While in machine learning, you want to choose the best model that predicts or forecasts the best. Anyway, so what I was doing here, I wanted to look which one is not so bad, and perhaps another problem why they are all insignificant might be because they are all highly correlated, and we can actually can check their correlation index. But perhaps the most straightforward way is just uh, run three more regressions with one at a time with IPI, because we definitely see that IPI is the best explanatory variable. So let's just run three more regressions like this. So this one, and then we
Maybe,
will check. Yeah, sorry.
maybe at this point, when we have so many regressions, we should just make some kind of a table. So put like the classification and the criteria, like for
Yeah,
columns.
so basically that's what I'm collecting here. I forgot to, I'm collecting all this stuff. I just forgot to, sorry. And of course, in practice, you would do it in a loop. Of course, you wouldn't do this. In practice, you would do it in a loop, and we can write a loop, but I just wanted to go like from the very basics. Um, yeah, let me add an additional column. Um, let's say model, yeah, model, just model. And then I will be dropping this. Sorry, I wanted, well, okay. I wanted to do it in a different way, like this. Too many models. At this point, of course, it makes sense to run it in a loop. Uh, uh, what was it? I see. Consumer. Okay. You want to have a break? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, let's have a break. Let me just finish here. I forgot. Yeah. Uh, 1 second. I will just the last thing do here. Okay. So let's see. None of them become significant when we run them one by one. So really only the inflation is, sorry, industrial production index predicts anything. But also I should say that uh, I need to double check what is the data. Maybe there's something, again, not right with the data. I'm using some average production indices. So perhaps I think I did everything correct. I double checked everything, but maybe you can inquire on your own and see if what I'm doing makes sense. I just wanted to go like from the first principles, how we would usually do it. Like download data from Scratch and start running it. And you saw that I made a mistake. I downloaded the data that wasn't seasonally adjusted, and so the harmonized index of consumer prices was bad. But anyway, it doesn't have much explanatory power anyway. Okay, and the last thing, just let us take a look at the final summary of all models. And so perhaps we can sort values by made it big. Um, so the best model is just this one. Let's say I, still this one, and now I forgot I made a mistake. So one of those. No, API here is not the best, but it's almost the best. So anyway, basically we should just go with the smallest one, the most parsimonious one, the this one, and try forecasting with this model. Okay, let us take a break, and then I'm going to take. Yeah, so the comment is that maybe it's just the data, it's not really significant. It may be the data, but we always need to be careful. What is the data, if it makes sense, if we're comparing apples to apples. So we need to be super careful with all these things. And then I'm not sure again, seasonal adjustment, I'm using everything correctly. And maybe at the end of the day, it's just nothing predicts GDP growth rate, but producer industrial production index. Anyway, let us take a break. I guess 10. Let us take a break of 10 or 15 minutes because we need to. Uh, so we'll run until 6:30. Okay, let us stop here. Yeah, in 15 minutes.